bitches. Lounging right now. I'm lounging. What you guys doing? Papa bro, papa 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 boo, papa booey, papa booey, papa booey, papa booey. Yeah, papa booey. What is the origin of Baba Booey? I
Is when
don't
I work
even
with
know.
patients.
Do you guys know? I'm gonna watch this a little. Oh fuck. Am I gonna do that?
Is
Fucking wheezing.
actually in point.
I don't know where the cursor is. Stupid. Hola. I know. I don't know the origin of Baba Booey. I know some fat guy on Bam or Gura or something on MTV used to say it. And that's it. That's all I know.
Be a doctor, hopefully. Had a pretty tragic accident. You know, it'll be. Security can be countered by resources. You can't watch TV, you can't have sex. Isn't it hard to give up life? No, the monks have the easiest planet to give up. And yet, the real tragedy of the situation is that, like, who's going to take responsible for fixing the society that you live in? I'm going to do some tiny part. I encourage y'all one day to do some tiny part. I do so well for about 18 months, and then I have this manic episode. I spend, right? So when I work with a patient, I'm thinking about one patient in particular who has bipolar disorder. And we were talking about how challenging it is to live with bipolar disorder. They were like, you know, this is not fair. Like, why am I like this? I do so well for about 18 months, and then I have this manic episode. I spend $80,000, dig through all of my savings, buy all this stupid shit, start gambling.
Wow, thank you, Crystal.
Ruin my relationships, fuck up my job. This isn't fair. And what am I supposed to say to that as a psychiatrist? Right? I can't say, I mean, there are a lot of people out there who are kind of anti-psychiatry and like, you know, like, oh yeah, like it's all excuses that people make and like, you know, these are just pussies. I don't subscribe to that. I don't think it's fair.
Pussy.
It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. You're the one who has to live with it. Right? This is a reality of your life. And people aren't understanding about mental health. They're not compassionate about mental health. That's a reality of the world that we live in. Thankfully, y'all are starting to change that. And so what we need to do is take responsibility for whatever we can do. And this is the crazy thing. The crazy thing is that when I see people do this, it is very effective. You'd be amazed. I mean, I think you will be amazed. Because I've seen people who are lost and behind and hate society, and I've seen them rise to a place of happiness and success.
There.
Because when I work with patients, you know, we talk about, oh, like, you know, like you can do this and you can do this. And like, if you're having trouble with dating, like we can work on your confidence. But the truth of the matter is that as a psychiatrist, like I can't change the world that my patients live in. And if you really look at the data, the most influential thing for your mental health is the world that you live in. It is nothing about what you do. So there are some really profound studies on adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And what we find is that the crappier your childhood is, the more times you move, the more times your parents get divorced, the more times you get abused, the shittier your mental health is going to be and the shittier your life will be. Your circumstances create so much power in your life. In the East, we call this karma, and karma cannot be escaped.
I want to do drugs.
This is the truth of it. We need societal change. That's why I started streaming in the first place, because I found it to be insufficient to help people one at a time. We need to change the whole society.
I want to do drugs. I should.
Now, the challenge is that if we need to change society, are you screwed? And that's where, thankfully, the answer is no. So this is another mistake that I think a lot of people make, is that they say, okay, society. There's this old story from Hindu mythology. Not necessarily accomplishing a particular goal doesn't mean that they can't be goal focused. We have so much alcohol swimming around that the alcohol is like an artificial break.
Alcohol.
Am I chill with 1 beer or 2 beers or 3 beers?
Oh, hell yeah.
See, chillness
I'm
is
chill
an,
with
an
6,
internal experience, and that's where we need to explore. So some people will say, oh my God, I hate working 8 hours. Some people will say, I hate working 12 hours. I'm happy to work 24 hours. I'm chilling. I love being on call. I like working hard on call.
What's this part?
Cool. Oh, I don't have friends. You invite them somewhere. You try to help them over and over and over again, and nothing's. I do something about them. Let's say that I'll walk y'all through it, okay? So there's taken action, and then this is the really important part. It's not just about the action, because a lot of people will take the action, but they don't do the second step, which is more important.
God bless you.
Then what you need to do is watch for and counteract the cognitive habit that comes afterward, the vasana. So I'll give you all an example. Let's say I don't feel good about my body. So then I go to the gym because everyone's like, oh, go to the gym. Okay, I'll go.
Go to the gym.
Going to the gym is
right
only
now.
25% of the battle. It's not even half. Then it's what happens when
you
you
doing?
go
You're
to the
so
gym, what
fat.
your mind
You're
does
the
when
fat
you go
boy.
to the gym, and what
Go
your
to the
mind
gym.
does after you go to the gym. It starts making
the gym,
comparisons. Oh,
patas.
you're so out of shape. Oh, you're so pathetic. And then you leave and you're like, I'm never coming back. That's where the real damage is. So I see this a lot, for example, like with people who are hopeless, right? Sometimes people will come to my office and they'll be hopeless. Like, I've tried everything.
No.
I went to this doctor. I did this. I worked with a dating coach. I got plastic surgery. I did everything. Nothing works.
Because I still love you even if you are fat.
See, we can change as much as we want to in the outside world. But
Just
if we
don't be
don't
like
change
600
the
pounds,
inner
but
response,
since you walk to work,
no amount of external change
I
will be
believe
sufficient.
that you're not.
And I know this sounds like, oh, like, change yourself on the inside. No, let's just be fucking practical for a second, okay? If you have someone who is unhappy in life, no amount of gifts will make
I'm
them
eating
happy.
oatmeal.
And
I'm eating oatmeal with raisins. I put raisins in it and walnut. I added walnuts and raisins. And it's maple brown sugar oatmeal. It's my breakfast. I've actually been loving oatmeal for breakfast. Before it used to be yogurt, and then now it's oatmeal. Once I get tired of oatmeal, I might cycle back to yogurt. Or something else. I don't know.
on the inside. Now, let's just be fucking practical for a second, okay? If you have someone who is unhappy in life, no amount of gifts will make them happy. And I bet you money that y'all know this because you've tried it. You've done kindness after kindness after kindness for this person. They're still not happy. They say, oh, I don't like this. I don't get the good food. You give them the good food. Oh, I don't have friends. You invite them somewhere. You try to help them over and over and over again, and nothing seems to work. Let's think about it scientifically. How is this? That's because only half of it is the action. The other half is the internal response, the cognitive response.
Yeah.
The yogis discovered this thousands of years ago when they discovered a vasana, a mental habit, a mental reaction that discounts external action. Thousands of years later, Aaron Beck rediscovered it. Right?
The yogis,
he said, hold on a second, there is a cognitive bias at play. So for anything that you lack confidence about, take the action. But what the internet fails to tell you is that the action is just half the battle. It is the mental response that you have, and watch yourself and think about this for a second, right? So I went to the gym today and I walk out, and how do I feel about myself? Pathetic. This was a mistake. There's the problem. When progress becomes a mistake, you will stay stuck for the rest of your life. Going to the gym is a mistake if you feel unhappy about your body? What the fuck illogic is that?
What the fuck?
This is why we stay stuck. It is not because of the lack of action. It is because not understanding what our mind does. And so by all means, go see a therapist. By all means, check out what we do on the membership side where we explain these more advanced yogic concepts like Vasana. By all means, just pay attention to yourself. By all means, you look at this on your own. You don't need anyone's help. Help helps.
Help helps.
Look.
Help.
And ask yourself one question. What is the progress that I make that my mind thinks is a mistake? That wasn't intended to rhyme, but it came out nicely.
What is the progress that I make that my mind says is a mistake?
Addiction or... Okay. Let me do this real quick. So here's the next post. I want to do this one for
pictures.
sure. Okay. I get a job. I can't stand this anymore. I quit. I need a job to survive. We're going to talk about how to break out of the cycle. But before we do that, what do? Ketamine addiction or cycle of job and quit? All right, let's vote real quick, chat. One of the advantages. Okay, so cycle of job and quit is winning pretty heavily. Okay, so no surprise. The team here at HG selected a lot of great posts that we will focus on. Okay? So I love doing Q&A, and I know it's just been a while, but okay. All right, so we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and I'm going to pause this, and I'm going to pay attention to chat. Okay. I know Sugar Danny's saying ketamine. Sorry, Sugar Danny. All right. I get a job. I can't stand this anymore. I quit. I need a job to survive. So this is a cycle that a lot of people go to. Okay? Go through, sorry. And the problem with this cycle is that it's a cycle. And so what happens is that if we look at cycles, the basic problem with cycles is that we go through them over and over and over again. And if we think about why do we go through a cycle over and over and over again, like fundamentally, like what's going on, right? Does that kind of make sense? Like why does this happen? So the reason is because a cycle is driven by particular things. The reason that we end up going through this cycle is because we're actually continuously responding to certain emotional drivers. And if we kind of look at this, okay, here's what's going on. Right? So let's take a look at this real quick. So I get a job. I can't stand this anymore. Okay, so what we're going to do is take a look at this. I can't stand this anymore. I quit. I need a job. So for any cycle to continue, it requires an energy input. Okay? So this is like important to understand. Anytime we're making a movement, it requires energy input. And the reason that this cycle is so common is because it actually has the same energetic input. Each of these steps actually increases energy in a particular way.
He's a doctor, that's the
rule. And then
rule.
once that energy reaches a critical threshold, then that energy drives us to action. And breaking this cycle is actually relatively simple, but it can be very difficult. And what we need to understand is not these steps. We need to understand the arrows. Because what actually propagates the cycle? It's not the steps, it's the arrows. Does that make sense? This is what's moving us from here to here. So think about this for a moment. I get a job. The real money is not that you get a job. It's what happens over here that allows you to not, I can't stand this job anymore. And if you can't stand this job, what results in the quitting? If you quit, what results in the not needing the job? So oftentimes what I find is that when people are in cycles, what they tend to do is they actually miss the important stuff. Right? So I keep on like, I can't find someone. I can't find the right person. I keep on dating the wrong people. And it's like, I'm lonely. I need to date, or I date someone. I date someone. This relationship is unhealthy or doesn't feel right. I break up. Right? We can see these cycles. This happens a lot too. Or I got to get out of the house. I go out of the house. I try to socialize. I feel anxious. So there are a lot of these cycles. And everyone focuses on these steps. But that's not where the money is. The money is right here.
Fuck up, Arada.
And the reason for that is because when human beings correctly diagnose a problem, they fix it. If a problem persists, that usually means there is incorrect diagnosis. Same is true for the medical profession. That's how we learn this stuff. If I diagnose you with the wrong thing and I keep treating you, you're going to keep having problems. So if we want to understand what drives us in this cycle of getting a job, can't stand this anymore, quitting, and I need a job, what it is our emotional motivation. We are victims to our emotional motivation, which is why we propagate this cycle. Okay, so let's understand this. So the first thing, let's start with I need a job.
I have no motivation. I don't know what I want in life. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I am. I don't know where I am sometimes. And I don't know what I want out of life. I just don't know. Yeah, I want to win. I want to win in Overwatch.
So when you need a job, what is going on here? We're desperate. I need a job. Right? You're not selecting a job. It is a move of desperation. And when you're making a move of desperation, so you're so desperate. So like now I'm like, I have some amount of money. The money starts to run out. The desperation starts to rise. And as the desperation reaches a critical threshold, it triggers a motivational action, which is find a job. The panic signals happen. Find a job, find a job, find a job. So I find a job. I go walking down the street. Oh, look, it is a job. So if we look at it, what is it that drives me? What is it that results in a job? It is desperation. So the moment that I have a job, the desperation disappears. Right? I no longer need a job. I have a job. I need a job. I have a job. And then what starts to happen? Well, how did I pick my job? Well, I just picked what I needed to because I was desperate. There's no selection of the job. And then what happens is this job isn't great. So then what happens is like the emotional negativity starts to build up. My boss is not the best. The hours suck. The commute is too long. Negativity piles up, piles up, piles up until I am desperate. I can't stand this anymore. And once again, what is it that motivates us? Desperation. So then what do? I quit. Once again, desperation. And now that I quit, what happens? I burn through whatever savings I have. I need a job. Desperation increases. So as long as you are living a life where desperation is driving you, you will accept the bare minimum. It is about getting by today. And if your emotional strategy, if your life strategy is getting by today, you are going to get bodied right, left, and center. You will never build a life that is worth living if your goal is getting by.
Thank you.
If your motivation is the avoidance of desperation, you will never build a happy life.
The force.
Because your goal is not joy. Your goal is not success. It is, I want to get rid of this. And this, by the way, is the way that our whole medical profession has trained us to be. We have a society that focuses on fixing problems, not building things. We need to fix the homelessness problem. We need to fix, oh, you have pain? Let me give you ibuprofen. That'll take the pain away temporarily. Now you're desperate, take this pill. When the pill wears off, take another pill. When the pill wears off, take another pill. Take these 6 pills every single day. Don't build health, right? You'll never find a gym in a doctor's office. You'll never find a meditation room in a doctor's office. Right? And the most shocking example of this, like I talk about this a lot because it just really seared in my mind. I was on vascular surgery rotation. And the patient was coming in for the 3rd amputation. And the attending surgeon that I work with comes in. He's like, here we are again.
That's big.
This guy has literally removed pieces of this patient's feet.
Feet?
And he's like, you know this is going to keep happening while you keep smoking, right? You got to stop smoking. And she's like, yeah, doc, I know. I'm so sorry. Lops off a piece of her foot. Gives her a pamphlet. Here's how smoking is dangerous for you. Literally, dude, like fucking.
Crystal, is that your dream
like,
job?
My mind was blown. I was like, is that the extent of this conversation? Hey, you know this is going to keep happening until you stop smoking. Let's activate the saw and remove the foot. I was like, what the fuck? I was a 3rd-year medical student at the time. Couldn't say a damn thing. Burned in my mind. And you can even argue, fairly so, by the way, I'm not blaming the surgeon because it's not the surgeon's job. Right? The surgeon's job is to lop things off. It's not their job to do smoking cessation counseling. But they put an order for it, and a nurse shows up while you're in the hospital and gives you some resources, does a decent job. But this is what happens in our system, is we fix problems. We don't create health. We just fix what is broken. And if in your life you are constantly fixing what is broken, you'll never break out of the cycle. Because you're not banking anything. So the cycle of desperation continues. Your primary motivation is desperation. I need a job. Let me find something. So how do we break out of this cycle? We break out of the cycle by literally breaking out of the cycle. Okay, so we're going to show you all what I mean. So, okay, I need a job. So I get a job. I can't stand this. Here's what we need to do. Find better job. When the desperation is at a low, you should keep looking for a job. Okay? I can't stand this anymore. I quit. When the desperation is at a high, I'm going to work with a therapist or coach to stay happy and in the job while I find a better job. This is how we break out of cycles, right? We literally find alternatives. But the problem is that this is hard. Why is it hard? Well, first of all, the economy sucks. right? So the deck is stacked against you. Let's remember that people who wind up in the cycle are not here because they're stupid. They're here because things are genuinely hard. If a bunch of people find themselves with a problem, right? Like if we look at like malaria affects a bunch of people in sub-Saharan Africa. Does it mean that they're dumb? No. Does it mean that they're weak? No. It means that there's a lot of mosquitoes with malaria. If a lot of people are experiencing this in our society today, it means that there's a societal problem. The first of the societal problems is that we are training people to be emotionally responsive, mercurial. We get motivated by our emotions, and this starts very early, right? If you don't study, you're going to fail. Starts very early, where we try to incentivize people from fear and desperation. If you don't do this, you're going to get bullied. Or we bully you because you're not wearing the right clothes. So now you're motivated to dress based on the avoidance of negative emotion. This is how we live our lives, through the avoidance of negative emotion. And people who are very manipulative love this because they realize if I can create negative emotion in you, I can control your behavior. We see this a lot with the men that I work with, or I see this a lot with the men that I work with, where we guilt trip men for providing. It's a man's job to provide. Happens with women too. With cognitive load and groceries. Oh my God, don't get me started. Right, so we do this a lot. And so the challenge, though, is that when we talk about finding a better job, it's not that easy. Because first of all, the economy sucks. It's getting better, at least here in the US. But there's a second problem, which is that what is it that motivates me to get a job? This is fueled by desperation. And why don't we find a better job? Because when we find a job, we're already exhausted. I've applied to 300 jobs. I'm tired. Now the desperation goes away. I can't motivate myself to find a better job. Let's be honest. It's not that easy. Right? So then this cycle continues. I quit. And then what happens is I feel desperate. So even this is a problem. Because now what's happening is our desperation creates the sense that I need a job. And since I have a desperation, I find the first thing that'll come. I'm not selective. And if I'm not selective for my job, what am I going to do? I'm not going to be able to stand it. This desperation here and here inevitably creates a situation that you cannot stand. This is how you break out of the cycle. First of all, recognize that what propagates the cycle needs to change. If the driving force behind the cycle changes, the cycle will end. Right? So when there's a blood feud, which we don't have much anymore, right? But I guess take your favorite streamers that beef regularly. Right? So we still have something like blood feuds. So the streamers that beef regularly. What's driving the cycle of blood feuds? It's vengeance. Right? There's no forgiveness. There's no compassion. There's no admitting what I did wrong. Both sides did something wrong, but what do they focus on? They focus on what the other side did wrong. They never own up to their mistakes. I've been in beef with people before. Generally speaking, it goes a long way to say, hey, buddy, I screwed up in these ways. I'm sorry. And then something cool happens, right? When you apologize to someone, if you're lucky, they apologize back. Yeah, I know, man. I wasn't the best either. And it's like, what the fuck did we just do here? You did this wrong. You did this wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like, what the? It's that easy. But some of y'all will say, but it's not that easy because I apologize and they say, yeah, screw you. And they don't accept responsibility. Fair enough. Those people exist too. And then what you do is distance yourself. Even when you apologize to someone who does not apologize back, you've taken some energy out of that cycle because you're not aggravating them. And then they'll get less aggressive. And over time, what you want to do is just don't feed the cycle. Let this plant wither and die. But don't give it fertilizer. And in the cycle of the job, and so then over time you want to let it die. And then what you're going to do is find other relationships where people are apologetic when they do something wrong. They accept their mistakes. And then your energy is going to go over there. You will literally spend less time thinking about this person. This person may try to aggravate you, right? Because they're trying to put energy into the cycle, but now your energy is somewhere else. You just leave them behind. They can have their life. You're going to have yours. This is how you escape toxicity, through forgiveness and distance. Still not as easy as I'm describing. I recognize that. Right? This is the sketch of the strategy that works. Going back to the job thing, we have to escape this energy of desperation. See, even if I need a job, if I'm able to be patient and wait for the right job, can I manage that desperation a little bit better? When this job sucks, can I build my resilience a little bit? Can I try to improve the job a little bit? Can I seek some degree of help? Can I get some kind of support? We have to change whatever fuels the cycle. And then you all may say, okay, so like we can reduce the desperation. This is where working with a therapist or coach or someone like that, right? We have career coaching where they're pretty good at this kind of stuff. Right, helping you understand where your motivation comes from. Sometimes it's more efficient to work with someone. Right, I don't need to ever work with a plumber. I can do everything by myself, but it's just easier to use a plumber sometimes because it'll get done within 24 hours. And if I try to do it myself, who knows how long it'll take if you DIY it. And we're a society that has still underappreciated the value of working with someone else who specializes in human behavior. Right, so you'll see this a lot, for example, like, I gave a talk at Indeed a couple years ago, and they have like a on-staff coach. And Google has a whole coaching program, I think. Right, so they have like these internal coaching programs because they figured out, like, holy crap, like this actually helps. When I went through my executive coaching certification, like half the people in the room were like HR professionals. So people have figured out this stuff helps. But the main thing to understand is if you're stuck in the cycle, it's usually driven by desperation, and you need to break out of that desperation. Reduce the desperation as much as possible. Now, a lot of people may get confused by that because they're saying, if I reduce the desperation, then I won't act. You won't act in the... So once you remove the desperation, it makes space for another kind of motivation. So this is where once you have a job, what do you like about it? What do you dislike about it? Can you start to be a little bit more proactive and take on projects that may be more engaging? To be more involved at your work. Paradoxically, to work harder. So this is something that a lot of people miss, is that like when you're desperate and you take a job and you're like, ugh. Your mental lack of engagement is what makes it untenable. So if you look at studies on health of a relationship, especially within the first 6 months, what you find is that someone's attitude towards the relationship heavily influences the health of the relationship.
Can you get my email?
The attitude that someone has, if someone thinks, oh, this is a crappy relationship, I settled for this person, the relationship is going to be unhealthy. Faith in the relationship literally determines the quality of the relationship. It's not the other way around. This is what a lot of people get confused. They think, oh yeah, I have faith in the relationship because it's good. It's actually scientifically the reverse. I have faith in the relationship that makes it good. I have faith in a job that makes it better. I believe in this that makes it better. And we know this. This is placebo. I believe this medicine works. It makes it work. Fucking weird. Right? So notice the cycle of desperation. Reduce your desperation as much as possible. Create space for another kind of motivation to arise. Experiment a little bit and don't get complacent. Do you guys understand that desperation and complacency are part of a cycle. They're the same thing. They're two sides of the same coin. Once the desperation goes away, what am I left with? Am I left with joy, drive, motivation? No, I'm left with complacency. And when the complacency goes away, I'm left with desperation. This is not just a problem of desperation. This is a problem of complacency. So pay attention to this cycle. Work on the desperation. Make space and actually put forth more effort. Don't let your effort be tied to your emotional desperation. Separate these two variables. The more you do that, the better things will become. Questions?
I have a question. How do I get better Overwatch?
So Rockwell is asking, do you think coaching is a hidden gem in a world where people don't appreciate such ones that work with human behavior? So people who do work with coaches may have an advantage in the society. I think that's true. Absolutely.
Hey, he ignored
right?
his,
So the coaching outcomes research is not great as a field.
He ignored my question.
But I think that there's a reason why you see a lot of these companies.
Dr. K, no, you're a quack. Dr. Quack, you ignored my question. Fuck you, goodbye. Yeah, of course. Grizzle, of course. And if I doxed myself with it, then I guess you know. I hope it works. I try to do it through yours. I didn't know. But if you prefer the .com one instead of .co.uk, let me know, and then I can try to talk to them and exchange it. And if you don't like that one, I try to give you like the prepaid, but it kept getting denied, even though I talked to my bank and said, yeah, it's not a scam. I want to buy his prepaid card, Visa card, so that you can use it anywhere, not just on Amazon, you know? I felt bad. I don't like giving gift cards because I don't like to restrict where you spend, you know? Like, if you wanted to buy a figure on Ami, you shouldn't be able to, you know? Okay. I don't know. Sometimes I get paranoid that different countries have like worse Amazon services or listings. Like it's more limited in what they offer than .com. Because I've heard horror stories that Canada, Amazon is like really bad and the shipping is like really slow compared to the US. Okay. Okay, that's good. Yeah. If you have problems with it, just let me know. Oh, I gotta update Overwatch. I'm playing on PC this time. I'm not gonna play on the PS5. They do. Full screen. And then window capture. BattleNet. Overwatch. Why is the download so slow? Look at that. That's horrible. That should be like zoom in. Let me check my... Can I turn off the stupid VPN?